All right, so we are recording and just ready to go ahead and get started on our part 2 of our legacy training. So hi everybody, I'm Lindsay Haiduk. I serve as one of 2 affiliate program officers based in Anchorage on the traditional lands of Dena'ina Athabascans. And I'll give a little bit of a Zoom orientation for this session, and then we'll kick it over to presenters. You probably are more familiar now with Zoom than you've been in a long time. And what you can do is hover over the dark screen and you can click on gallery view so that you can see everybody's faces, hovering up and just going to the top right to click on that. And you'll notice that as you've joined, you are muted. So we are asking folks to type in the chat box if you have questions throughout. And if you hover over the black screen, you can find a menu bar at the bottom where you can mute or unmute yourself, turn your video on and off, and you can click on participants and chat, and that will pull up boxes for the full participant list, as well as a chat box for folks to type in questions if they have them throughout the session. I started it off with, if you want to just type in your name, your role, and the affiliate you're with, that can help do some introductions without taking the time to share out. So you can go ahead and test out the chat box by typing in right now. And we will have a Q&A session at the end. So if we do have chats throughout that we could answer, we might go ahead and pause, but we do have a lot of information to cover. So we'll try our best to keep things moving so that we can do more engagement during the Q&A session. And so before I get started in the overview of our training itself, I just wanted to start by thinking about our role as leaders in philanthropy across the state in today's context. So in the wake of George Floyd's murder and the death of so many others, we have a unique ability right now to act and support social change, much like we've come together for pandemic relief. We have a long-term path and journey ahead of us, and dismantling systemic racism is part of that long-term journey, and it takes commitment, intention, and resources. And those are all things I think about when we consider legacy giving and the impact that we can have by working together in perpetuity. So just wanted to ground us in thinking about where we are today and what we're collectively working towards so that we can develop and build this future together. So today we can go ahead and share some tools and resources to get us all started on that collective legacy work. I think Mariko, you can go ahead and share your screen so that we can go over just a few of the sections today. And then we'll have the presentation to share with everybody as we move along. We're excited to have Elizabeth Miller back, our Vice President of Development and Communications. Mariko Serafin will also share, our Senior Affiliate Program Officer. And then we have great members of affiliate communities coming to share more about the work that you are all doing. So we've got Cece and Jessica Stevens Community Foundation, and Myron with Chilkat Valley, and Joe Kukley is going to dive in deep from Golden Heart Community Foundation as well. Mariko, are you able to share your screen, or is it?
I'm not. If you enable it, I'll be able to.
Okay, give me a minute. Did that make it work?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Perfect. So we're going to start by talking about our commitments to legacy giving, and then we'll move into phases of a legacy giving plan. And then we'll dive deeper into what questions and common considerations we have with donors when it comes to legacy giving. So with that, I'm happy to turn it over to Elizabeth Miller.
Thanks, Lindsay. I wanted to go off script for a moment, Mariko and Lindsay, so hopefully I don't shake things up too much. But I'm really interested in knowing how many of the people that are on this Zoom session tonight were with us for the first Legacy Giving session just last May, or just a few weeks ago in May, I guess it was. Can you do press raise hand at the bottom of the participant list? And then Lindsay could tell us how many that is. Oh, I can see. So maybe half? Okay, perfect. That's really helpful for me to know. Thank you. And I'm glad to have all of you here tonight, as we dive into really planning for legacy giving at your affiliate. We're going to start with talking about the commitment to legacy giving and how important that is. During the first session back in May, we talked about legacy giving, sometimes called planned giving, but it's really an important component of really any successful fundraising plan. But for us in community foundations, it's really the lifeline for endowments. As a quick review, the most common form of legacy giving is when a donor leaves a bequest in their will or estate plan to a charity. There are lots of other types of legacy giving vehicles, and actually Joe Kukley is going to provide some great information about those other vehicles, about all vehicles, later in tonight's session. One of the reasons that legacy giving is so important now is that over the next 25 years, it's estimated that baby boomers will be passing on nearly $48 trillion in assets to their heirs and favorite charities. And there are very specific steps that your affiliate can take to ensure the best possibility that your affiliate will benefit from legacy giving in future years. But before we get to them, there are two foundations that need to be in place at your affiliate. And the first is each advisory board member needs to be conversant in what your community foundation is doing for your local community now and will do in the future. And to gain confidence in talking about these topics, you can have your advisory board members practice answering these questions. They're not hard, but they really do take practice. What does my affiliate do for my community? Why am I on the board? Why should my friends give to my affiliate? And if you can practice answering those questions, you will have one of those foundations in place for legacy giving. The second foundation that's necessary for legacy giving to be successful is the advisory board's intentional focus and commitment on legacy giving. Because there's no immediate return on investment, it's really easy to put legacy giving on the back burner and allow the here and now issues to take over. What the focus and commitment looks like in each affiliate community is going to be really different. It might start with the adoption of a board resolution to support legacy giving. You might be able to keep it top of mind by including review of progress toward legacy giving goals at regular board meetings. So it will take a different form in each community probably, but it's really important to keep that commitment front and center, the commitment to legacy giving front and center. So Lindsay is now going to ask you a question. Oh, can't hear you, Lindsay.
So I've got the two questions up. They should be in front of you, and you can go ahead and just go ahead and click on which of these reflect where your affiliate is at. First, how confidently can all of your advisory board members describe what your affiliate does now and will do into the future for your community? And then what stage is your affiliate at when it comes to legacy giving? So I can see responses coming in, and it's just giving us a good temperature check of where you think things are at so that we can build on this foundation. I'll just give it another minute. We have 66% of the votes in. Okay, we're getting closer. But for time, I think I'll go ahead and close the poll in just another couple seconds, and then we can share out the responses. So when it comes to how confidently can all of your advisory board members describe what your affiliate does now and will do into the future, we have a majority of folks on today's call say somewhat confident. Nearly 40% of the votes are in, with just about as many confident or completely confident above, and a few others just getting started. And then what stage is your affiliate at when it comes to legacy giving? A majority of folks are in the storming phase, just getting started and thinking about doing legacy giving out. Sorry, I should have pushed the share button as I was saying. You can see the results here in front of you. So that first question, largely landing on somewhat confident, and the second question, storming.
Great, that's really good information to see as we go forward with this session. I think that will be very appropriate, have great and appropriate information for you. In the past year, the Jessica Stevens Community Foundation that serves the Upper Susitna Valley began a focus on legacy giving. And tonight, Cece Schoenberger, a longtime advisory board member, has graciously agreed to share with us their approach to legacy giving. Cece?
Well, thank you so much for asking me to do this. And I was very impressed last time with all of the background and the history from the Chilkat Valley presentation, and I was feeling that, oh my goodness, we were, quite behind in this focus. And then, so it's very gratifying to see that most of the other affiliates are in the same place we are at this moment in time. So I had looked, historically, we were one of the original affiliates. So that means that we came online in 2007, 2008. So I looked at some of those things and talked with a few of the former board members. And, basically, I think one of the reasons that we've been behind a little bit in giving this our focus is that we were trying to really establish ourselves as a presence in the community and really trying to concentrate on building our the knowledge about the endowment funds, both the regular endowment and the memorial, so that we could build up what we could give away in grants. So our focus was on grant making. And it's, so therefore the legacy piece, was not really as much of a focus. It was talked about some, but not very much. So then last October, we would talk about it and say, yes, this is something we need to do. This is something that we should be working on. And, for all the reasons that have been talked about. Then in October, our chair, Will Peterson, came to the board and said, well, we have a grant from ACF to do a presentation on legacy giving. And we tend to do a presentation each year. We thought, well, this is great. This really works into what we wanted to do. So we went ahead and planned a legacy giving / will preparation presentation for the community. And that happened on the 1st of February. And at that point in time, we really started thinking about what is the meaning of legacy giving, and what do we need to work on in our particular foundation. And this was extremely well attended. I mean, we were, as Mariko can attest, we were squunched into the library, and it was very hot, but we learned an incredible amount of information, both about legacy giving and some of the reasons why Elizabeth came and talked about that. And then folks were given the opportunity to really learn about will preparation and some of the different kinds of trusts that could happen. And many of the folks walked away with a notarized will at that moment in time. After that, or right around that same time, I'm not sure, we officially established a standing committee on legacy giving. So now we have 4 of our board members on this subcommittee, and we have been meeting to discuss how are we going to move forward. And I think so obviously our first piece was to get all of our board members, with a little bit more knowledge about this, and really looking at the Legacy Intent Forum. And our first goal was is to get all of the board members, and we have 8 board members, to sign and submit a Legacy Intent Form. And then at this point, we have 5 past board members that we have named as emeritus board members. So then we will kind of branch out and talk with them about legacy giving, because we know that we are committed and they are committed to this organization. So we felt that it would be good practice for us to talk with each other and to talk with people that we really truly know are committed to the organization. And at the same time, of course, then COVID-19 happened, and this pandemic. And I don't know about other people, but we've talked about this a little bit in our group, that this really kind of put a spin on, oh my goodness, you don't have to really be old to be thinking about your legacy. That's for old people usually, but now anyone could die at any moment in time. It really brought home the whole idea of, well, let's really talk about it. And for me personally, this idea has put in my brain different kinds of things that I thought about. And I like the idea of this. I personally, and most of our board members, I'm sure other affiliates, have really had a hard time with thinking about directly asking people for money. I feel like, because now I really understand the whole issue of, in all of the nuances, not all of the nuances, but some of the nuances of legacy giving, that I actually can talk with people much more comfortably. I really do feel this is a topic that I can sit down and talk with people about why it's important and what it would mean to our affiliate. Certainly the Rasmussen challenge also played a part in it, because we made a decision as soon as COVID happened that we would not be directly asking people for endowment funds. People, if people had money to give, they needed to give them more to, AK Can Do and other places that are going to give out immediate money. But we felt like, oh, okay, this is a way of helping us to meet our challenge, by looking at legacy giving. It's not spending money at this moment in time that people, didn't have. So I think that's where we've come. That's our plan. One of the things that's interesting, I was thinking about it personally. I put a bequest in my will when I did it in 2016. But I didn't know about the Legacy Intent Form. Nobody had told me about that. So nobody, was not completed. So now I'm just going through the process with Joe, actually, and I have done what I need to do to get it all, my intent, to my bequest and put in the form. So I think that's an important thing that people have been thinking about, giving bequests. And we actually had one person who has left us a very large bequest, but never knew about the intent form. So she is interested in completing that. So I think that it's been a work in progress, and certainly most recently, and I certainly will say that because we're now really focusing on this, some of the materials that we received are going to be extremely helpful to us. So that's what we're doing at Jessica Stevens.
Great, thanks so much, Cece. That you would think we actually scripted you. It's a beautiful introduction to what we're going to cover tonight. Thank you. So we are going to move on to actually the creation of a legacy giving plan. And Marco, if you can, there you go. Because we're going to be going over this planning document. Once you have those two foundational pieces in place that we talked about, you really are ready to put together a legacy giving plan. And this is the document that we provided you with. It's a high-level 10-year plan template that you can use tonight. You can see that it is pretty high level. In the far left column are listed the 7 phases, front and back, or page 1 and 2, 7 phases of legacy planning. And we'll be talking about each of these phases in more depth and sharing some real life examples tonight. The second column lists examples of goals and activities that you could choose to focus on in each phase. Please note they really are just options and examples. We recognize that each affiliate organization is going to approach legacy giving planning in unique ways that are appropriate for your community. So you can choose some of these, or you can change the numbers, or you can put something totally different in. The next 2 columns provide you space to plan out your activities over 10 years in 3 time periods. You'll see year 1 and 2, years 3 and 5, and years 6 and 10. One of the reasons we're doing it this way is to make sure you understand it is a long-term process and you don't have to do it all right now. The column on the far right provides you just a little extra space for note-taking tonight. So next slide, please, Lindsay. This lists all those 7 phases that we're going to go through of gift planning, of legacy giving planning. Setting goals, establishing or reinvigorating your legacy giving committee, identifying the audiences that you want to communicate with, actually determining and developing donor communications and engagement activities, monitoring and tracking your progress on legacy giving, and then stewarding legacy donors and developing a action steps plan or timeline. Next slide. So we'll jump right into the first goal, the first phase, which is setting goals. And when you think about setting your legacy giving goals, think about what can be measured and what you and your fellow advisory board members have direct impact on. So we're going to assume that the objective of what you're doing with your legacy giving program is to increase the dollars in your endowment funds. But when we talk about the goals of your plan, focus on actions that will get you to that goal that you can measure and influence. For some organizations, their goal might be, we want to have $100 million in legacy gifts in the bank in 10 years. Okay, I used a big number, but remember, even at ACF, we didn't set a goal on dollars in the bank when we did the 5-year endowment campaign. It was value of legacy gifts committed. So you could do that if you want, but I actually, for your communities that are small, I wouldn't do that in a public way. It's just too small to be talking about values, but you could talk about number of commitments that you've gotten. You could set a goal about the number of people talked to about legacy giving, or the number of times legacy giving that you've mentioned legacy giving as an affiliate in your newsletters or social media posts. Really concrete things that lead to the actions that you want people to take. For the next 6 months, you might also want to set a goal around meeting the matching gift opportunities. And Marco's going to cover those details now.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Well, you all have likely heard about the legacy gift match opportunity, but let's cover it again just really quickly. So setting legacy gift goals that align with your maximum opportunities for the match this year will be really important, especially because we are in the last year of our match from Rasmussen Foundation. Legacy donors that complete a declaration of intent form, as CC alluded to earlier, for your affiliate, provide a here and now gift with their future gift through the match. And ACF will match 5% of the assessed value of the gift, up to $5,000 per gift. And this is per gift, it's not per household. So for example, if you decide to leave your affiliate a legacy gift through, let's say, an IRA designation, and so does your spouse, each of those gifts would count separately towards the match. We just need each of you to complete a declaration of intent form, noting the assessed value of the gift, today's assessed value. Back to you, Elizabeth.
Great, thanks, Mariko. Next slide, please. So now we're moving on to the second phase of legacy gift plan, and that's to establish or reinvigorate a legacy giving committee. So if you don't have a legacy giving committee as part of your advisory board structure now, it would be a great time to establish one. If you have one, but it's been languishing, now would be a great time to reinvigorate it. Possibly with these two trainings, maybe there might be some new people that are excited about championing legacy giving. There isn't really a magic number when it comes to number of committee members. I recommend at least 3, but your community might be able to support more members than that. Like other committees, the Legacy Committee should have more board members than non-board members. And one of the board members on the committee should have the official responsibility of being the liaison with your advisory board. And often, of course, this is the chair, but it doesn't have to be the chair of the committee. If you have an active legacy committee, they could bring suggested goals to the board for adoption. So you can see we put the first phase here of goal setting. Second phase is legacy committee, but now I'm saying the committee could submit goals. So it kind of is one of the chicken and the egg issue. The important factor is that wherever the goals come from, that the advisory board adopts them and supports them. If you don't have a committee or you don't have legacy giving goals, that of course should be your first focus in your plan. And maybe that's your focus for the next several months or even more than that. Next slide. So the third phase of your plan is identifying your focus audiences, who you will be communicating with about legacy giving. And to identify your focus audiences for the given time period, you just ask, who are we going to be communicating? Who do we want to communicate with? I really recommend that you start with something I call the low-hanging fruit. And Cece talked about this really well, and she didn't even know. I don't think that she was giving you a preview of what we're going to tell you. I would say first practice with your legacy giving committee members. They have a vested interest in your community already and in your organization and legacy giving. And the next focus, of course, would be your advisory board members, just as Cece talked about. They're people who are already committed to you. They know about your organization, and it gives you a little bit more time to, I say, practice. I mean, you're doing it for real, but to have these conversations with people who know you and you know them, and they will be kind to you. Another group to keep high on your list is former advisory board members. Same reason, they know and love you, or at least they did at one time. They may well still. Once you've worked your way through the low-hanging fruit, as I call it, then you can look at other donors. And as I mentioned in last month's session, I use the acronym FLAGS. You want to look at your donor list for female, long-time, aged givers. But as Cece also said, it doesn't have to be those people. But this acronym of FLAGS, it is a generalization, but it does hold true that it is female longtime donors, no matter the size of gift, that end up being the best candidates for legacy giving. Another audience to consider is all of your donors and constituents. But of course, your communications with this broad audience will not be one-on-one conversations. It's going to be planting seeds about the idea of legacy giving. And we're going to talk about this more in the next phase. And another group that you might wish to focus on, and we certainly recommend it, is the professional advisors, the estate planning attorneys, financial advisors, and CPAs in your area or serving your area. The message you deliver to them is not an ask for a legacy gift, but interestingly, once they learn about your organization, many of them do make legacy gifts, but the initial message is much more about informing them about how your affiliate is serving the community and how your affiliate can meet their clients' needs. And Joe Kukley, longtime advisory board member of the Golden Heart Community Foundation in Fairbanks and an estate planning attorney, has agreed to share with us tonight suggestions about this group as a focus audience of your legacy giving communications. Joe?
Great, thanks, Elizabeth. So yeah, in Fairbanks, we have the Fairbanks Estate Planning Council. In Anchorage, there's the Anchorage Estate Planning Council, and there may be such groups in your community to look for. They're basically attorneys, accountants, insurance agents, and financial planners who, we've been together as a group for many, many years, and that's a great group for you all to tag into your community if such a community exists. And it's really asking your insurance advisors, maybe your own accountant, your own lawyer, does such a group exist in our community that maybe we could make a presentation to. But as an estate planning lawyer, I'm always looking for a way, it's like, how is this going to benefit my clients? And for me, I often have people say, well, I want to leave something to Fairbanks, or I want to benefit the community. Sometimes people my clients start out with, well, I want to leave to the American Cancer Society. Well, what does that really mean? The American Cancer Society is a large national, cancer prevention group, or they'll pick some really lofty thing. And it's like, well, how does that really look? And do you really want to leave to a large national organization or to something, that's mattered to meet you in the community? And when you just really start that conversation with clients, sometimes it's much closer to home. And that's where the community foundations and all of your communities and throughout the state can really step in. Because what does it mean to leave something to Fairbanks or Seward or Talkeetna or wherever? What does that really mean to that person? So that's what I'm looking for, and that's where the Community Foundation, I think, can be very helpful to lawyers. They have publications for estate planners or, for professionals. There's a tab on the website for professionals. There's all kinds of things that ACF can help you with for your community for giving. But I think starting a conversation with those professionals in your community to find out what exists is the first step, and making sure that your organization can kind of help with, because you know, a common goal. What's my client's goal? Does it match up with what you all are doing? And that's what I'm looking for, is how does this benefit my clients? And what resources are out there to make it easy for those two things to marry up?
Thanks, Joe.
That's all.
Thanks. So as we close out the third phase of the plan, which is identifying those the focus audiences, remember you choose one or two of these audiences to focus on in each time period. So for example, in years 1 and 2, you might say your focus is going to be on committee members and current advisory board members. Maybe in years 3 and 5, you're able to branch out to past advisory members. And maybe it's as simple as in years 6 to 10, you broaden the outreach to those flags and other community members. And maybe you can layer in there each year outreach to some number of 3 each, I don't know, 3 each year professional advisors. So I'm hoping that the third phase in identifying your focus audiences makes sense to you. And we'll move on to, Marco's ahead of me, thank you, Marco, to the fourth phase. And so that's really determining what donor communications you need to develop and what engagement activities you might want to implement. And of course, this is dependent on what you've just learned or decided to do in the third phase. Who are you going to be communicating with is going to determine what you need. So for example, in the first year, if your focus is on committee members and current advisory board members, you might not need any new documents or events. You're just doing one-on-one conversations. I said for practice, but you know, they really are for real. And as you go forward with them, you ask each other the 3 questions that we talked about in May. You know, those 3 questions. And next slide, please, Marco. Who do you love and care for, find comfort from? Who provides you support? And you ask that question because as you're thinking about leaving a legacy, it's usually very obvious that your answers to number 1, those are going to be the people who get the majority of whatever is left when you pass away. When you get to number 2, what gets you out of bed every morning, what issues keep you awake at night, you know, the answers to that might be a cause or a nonprofit that you want to be sure to support when you're gone. And number 3 helps to inform number 2 in some cases. But as you ask these questions of yourself, and then as you're working with fellow board members, these questions really do help think about the legacy that you want to leave in your community. Next slide, Marco. And then the most important question that you ask each other, of course, is, have you considered leaving a legacy gift to your affiliate? And it seems basic, but that really is the question that you want to get to, and you don't want to forget to ask it. And in these, I call them practice conversations, but in these conversations, if you're the one being asked, please be sure to ask questions in return, even if you know the answers, so that you can all practice answering the question, how can your affiliate help me leave a legacy in our community? And then I go back to this first section is a lot about questions, but I go back to the questions that we all need to be able to answer from the top of tonight's session. What does my affiliate do? Why am I on the board? Why should my friends give to my affiliate? The answers that you have already to these questions will prepare you to answer the questions that potential legacy givers have for you in conversation. So again, I call it practicing, and you might think it's practicing, but if you can have these conversations within your advisory board, first, you will be much more successful as you branch out to others. And if you haven't personally created your will or estate plan, I encourage you to do so. Again, Cece, we couldn't have scripted her better. I hadn't talked to Cece, and to know that she was going to say that. You can contact your professional advisor to create a will or estate plan, or you can change the beneficiaries on your IRAs. You could purchase a life insurance policy. You can take real steps to leave a legacy so that you can use these experiences when you're talking to other people. And it will also help you inform your organization about what steps are needed as you progress in your planning for legacy gifts. So if and when you begin reaching out to others, you may find you do need a legacy brochure, something that you can leave behind with people that you've had conversations with, something that you could give to somebody that said, I'm kind of interested in learning more. So you might need a legacy brochure. You can also take steps in your donor communications to ensure that legacy giving is a topic that is top of mind for people in your community. It doesn't take much, but it does take a lot of repetition. And so you could include a small mention in all of your newsletters, like, please consider leaving a legacy gift to your affiliate community foundation. And if you already have, let us know so we can recognize you. And if you have more room in your newsletter or more time in where you're mentioning this, you could include a small article about the ways to make a legacy gift or other information about the tax benefits of legacy gifts. And those are pieces that you could get from ACF. Another way to increase awareness is to build in mention of legacy giving at all of your regular events. It can be really simple and really brief. Maybe just more recognition of a legacy donor if you have one that's willing to be recognized, or maybe really just one of your speakers saying, did you know that by leaving a legacy gift to our community foundation, you can help ensure that our foundation is here to help our community thrive forever, and at the same time give you and your heirs a tax benefit. Want to learn more? Talk to one of our legacy committee members. So it doesn't have to be complicated, really simple. You're just, again, planting seeds. And as you begin to secure commitments for legacy gifts, you can start to recognize legacy donors in some of your publications or in your social media as ways to plant more seeds and recognize people if they give permission, of course. And when you're ready to reach out to the broader community, you could host wills and estate planning seminars like Cece talked about. Jessica Stevens did one in February and Cordova did one in May. And the Cordova one was done via Zoom. So lots of ways to do those wills and estate planning seminars. The idea is to find a local estate planning attorney or someone that serves your area. And if you need help, if you don't have somebody in your community, let me know. And I have connections with folks in Anchorage that are willing to do it, but that's not the first preference. The goal of these sessions is to encourage people to create wills of their own, so that, and to let them know that the reason that your affiliate is sponsoring this and offering it for free is because when people create wills, they often choose to leave a bequest to a charity in their will, and your affiliate is one of those charities that they could name. You can just say those words just like that. You're not necessarily telling them what to do. You're, again, planting a seed. The communication pieces and events that you need for legacy giving, of course, will be determined by the audience that you're planning for. And much of the messaging about legacy giving can be done via conversations in existing communications like newsletters and social media. And Lindsay is now going to show you some examples from affiliates of those things.
I think we'll kick it off with Mariko. Yeah.
No,
Sorry.
no worries, no worries at all. I actually, just before we look at the example, I just wanted to apologize to the group. I think I said IRA designation rather than IRA beneficiary when I was talking about the match earlier. So that's the beauty of a live session. So thanks for your grace in that. So first I wanted to show Chilkat Valley Community Foundation's legacy brochure. They did create this in 2019, and it's a wonderful example of having something tangible to provide to donors that are interested in leaving a legacy to your affiliate. So this is a template based off of Chilkat Valley Community Foundation's regular brochure template. And so we can certainly customize this for each of your communities. And so this is the front side, and please note that this is three-way folded, so that's why it might look a little funky as a one page. But you can see here, it does talk about the Chilkat Valley Community Foundation, what a planned gift, ways it'll benefit the Chilkat Valley. And then on the back side, it does talk about, just briefly, ways that donors can leave a legacy gift to Chilkat Valley Community Foundation, and really goes over the advantages of a planned gift to a fund of CVCF. And so not only does it provide sort of this basic information, also talking about the passions of legacy donors in the Chilkat Valley, but it also provides very specific information that legacy donors will need to know, including ACF's EIN number and information to share with their estate planning attorney. So next, Lindsay's going to show us an example from Sitka Legacy Foundation, and I'll click on the slide here.
Shout out to Robin and the Sitka Legacy Foundation folks. And Kim just wrote in the chat from Seward, can we share some of the seeds to plant when writing with affiliates? And this is an example. This is a section out of a newsletter, and it's something that can be general for the audience to just start to understand and learn about what legacy giving is. And then you can eventually start moving a little bit deeper, and we'll talk about that when it comes to not just planting the seed about what legacy giving is, but recognizing donors and building the group of folks who are part of your legacy society and your communities. And so this is part of planting the seeds and having some general information out there in a newsletter, in a blog, in any kind of social media post you have. You can start to plant some of these seeds for the public in your community.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Lindsay. And just a heads up, you don't need to try and whiz through reading all of this. We'll have all of these examples as reference documents later on. So the last example we wanted to share is from Golden Heart Community Foundation. It's a one-page document that provides sample bequest language to donors. And I know Chilkat Valley Community Foundation also has this customized for their affiliate. In the document, we encourage donors to contact ACF's development team and an estate planning attorney to determine exactly what language is most appropriate to fulfill their goals for their charitable legacy. Again, we can customize this for each of your communities. And ACF also does have this sample bequest language on our website under the professional advisors, tools and resources. And back to you, Elizabeth.
Great, thanks, Mariko. While Mariko and Lindsay were talking, I did look at the chat box, and Kim from Seward wanted to know if I could share the seeds that I was talking about planting, that verbiage that I had said, and yes, we can certainly get that out to you. And we will do that. So we will move on to the 5th phase of the Legacy Giving Plan, and that is monitoring and tracking progress. And you'll want to track who you're talking to about legacy giving. You can do this in a spreadsheet as an organization, and you're going to want to track who is talking to whom and what the status of the conversation is, so that as you have board turnover, you have information that will allow you to pick up on conversations after an outgoing board member. Next slide. Oh, back to the other one. There you go. So this is at least the picture of the top part of the Legacy Society Declaration of Intent form that we talked about, and this is available from ACF. And you want to be sure to ask those that make a legacy commitment or who have already made a legacy commitment to complete this form. You would then, as part of your tracking, mark on your spreadsheet that the form has been completed and the date and year. And this will, of course, allow you to track how many commitments you've secured in the year, assuming this is going to help you track where you are towards your goals. And you also will need to send a copy of this form to your affiliate program officer at ACF, but you keep the original form on file. At ACF, we flag the donor in C-suite as a legacy donor to your affiliate. I should say we're going to start doing this. We haven't done this per affiliate yet, but we will. And we save a copy of this document in their record. So this does two things. It allows your program, your affiliate program officer to pull reports for you that show who your legacy donors are, or it will allow that. And maybe even more importantly, when ACF receives a realized bequest, meaning the donor has died, the will has been executed, and the money has been sent to beneficiaries, this could be a long time in the future and none of us might be around. Well, whoever is on staff at that time will have access to the information on file that directs the funds to your affiliate's endowment. So it's a really important document for tracking and monitoring and for making sure everything works out the way it's supposed to in the end. And now I'm excited to turn it over to Ann Myron, a longtime member of the Chilkat Valley Community Foundation Advisory Board, who's going to review with you how they track and monitor legacy gifts.
Thank you. We created this spreadsheet, and this is actually a spreadsheet that we put together more recently. We've used several different spreadsheets over time and decided we finally needed to just really combine them into one document so it was easier to track and see. And so we do note, as Elizabeth said, we need to know when the forms were signed, and we've just been tracking the year, but maybe we should add month and date as she suggested. And we also track when we sent that form to ACF so that we know that that step has been accomplished. And then we, a lot of the other information is we set this spreadsheet up so that it can be used with mail mergers, so that when we want to communicate with just the people that have made a legacy gift, we can use this spreadsheet as a way to get the letters all set up with the addresses and the salutations and all of that. So that's, we have names, last names, first names, and then a column for how we would have the dear so-and-so put in. And then as we've gone through this, we found out that people, as was mentioned earlier, some people share a will. And so how many wills are involved in this legacy gift? Is it both members of a couple, or is it have a separate will, or is there just one will for the two? And then just recently we had to add that gifts received column, which was really an exciting thing. So we hadn't thought about having that in there. Another thing that we have a column for are contact preferences, if any, and that place to put notes that in our dealings with that donor, they've said something to us that we need to remember so that we communicate with them the way they want us to, or they have certain preferences or whatever. So we have a column to note that. And it just, you know, it makes it easier. And then we also, because we started close to home and with board members and committee members, we highlight under that last name column in different colors who are past board members, who are or who are board members, whether it's past or current, and also any committee members, just so that we can see who we're getting out of that really core group, and know that we still have others we want to work on. Thank you.
Thanks, Anne. So now, let's see, on to legacy donor stewardship, which is our 6th phase. When a donor commits to an end-of-life gift to your organization, it's of course very important to continue to communicate with them and involve them in events to really keep them engaged in your organization. Bequests and wills are revocable. They can be changed. They're not, it is rare that they're changed, but they do change. And so if they become less enamored with your organization, they might take you out the next time they change their will. So it's really important to keep them engaged. Of course, thank them and continue to thank them. And I say, of course, thank them, because when you get the declaration of intent form, I'm sure it's natural. You guys would do great things to thank them. But maybe also thank all of your legacy donors once a year. Maybe around Valentine's Day, you could reach out to them because they're the heart of your organization. You could extend heartfelt thanks to them. But something that lets them know that you are very much thankful and appreciative of the actions that they've taken about their legacy gift. And the other thing to do is to continue to ask them to give annually, or to give however they've been giving to your organization up until now. It's okay, and in fact, it is usually expected that you will continue to ask them for here and now gifts. They have left you the ultimate gift of a planned gift, a legacy gift, and as such have great interest in making sure that your organization continues to thrive. So keep asking them to give. And then with their permission, of course, recognize them, because they are great donors to your organization. And as we talked about that, there's lots of ways to do that. And this is the thing that gives you a win-win. By recognizing them in your publications or new social media posts, you're providing them with recognition if they want it, and it plants a seed with others in your community about making a legacy gift. It's a way to keep that topic top of mind. And oh, by the way, if a legacy donor says, I don't need any recognition, push back a little bit very gently. Say, oh, I know you didn't do this for recognition. Tell them, I know you didn't do it for recognition. However, if we thank you publicly for making your legacy gift, others may be inspired to do the same. Oftentimes, that's all they need to say, oh yeah, sure, you can tell people I did this. I apologize for the ringing phone in the background. Next slide. So Marco is going to review some simple ways Chilkat Valley has recognized their legacy donors.
Thanks, Elizabeth. And I wanted to thank the Chilkat Valley Community Foundation for being willing to share out a lot of their communications and marketing materials. Several of these examples that we're going to show were shown in session 1. But since we're diving deep into the topic of setting up a legacy giving plan, we wanted to show some of these examples again. So the first one here, this is a web page that Chilkat Valley Community Foundation set up. It is a planned giving web page, and it does sit under the main Give tab of their website. And you can see here, there's an introductory sentence, and then they also quote a legacy donor, which I thought was really, really clever and a great way to highlight a donor as well on the plan giving page. So that's all to say that any affiliate can really customize and make their web pages, you know, add on to a legacy planning or estate planning page. We could certainly do that for your affiliate. And I know there are several communities that have already requested to do so, and they've used Chilkat Valley Community Foundation really as the template. So this next one is a printed material. This is a planned giving information about the Legacy Society, and it also highlights again legacy donors that provided a declaration of intent form verifying their gift to Chilkat Valley Community Foundation. They smartly also talked about the match in this piece. So they did talk about the match opportunity of 5% of the assessed value of the gift, up to $5,000 per gift. So this was part of a printed piece that they sent out to all of their donors. And again, these examples will be available for your reference later on. And I really liked this one, so I wanted to add this. This was featured in their newsletter, and it highlighted new legacy donors to Chilkat Valley Community Foundation. So it was a great way to share out the wonderful opportunity for other donors to join the Legacy Society, and also highlight new donors that are part of the Chilkat Valley Legacy Donor Club. Not that that's a real club. They're part of the Legacy Society of Alaska. And so those are just three quick examples of ways that you can recognize legacy donors for your affiliate. There are many others, but certainly we can start building off of these ideas for your affiliate. And so now we're going to move on to the next phase. Elizabeth.
Thanks, Marco. So the next and final phase of the planning for legacy giving, and that really is putting together a timeline or an action step plan. And if you filled out the planning template as we've gone over it tonight, you have the start of a great legacy plan for the next 10 years. But step 7 is really about getting down to the details about what you'll accomplish in the next year or 6 months or so. So look at what you've indicated you want to accomplish in the next 1 to 2 years. And of those activities, what has to happen in the next, I have 3 quarters there, but you all know that there's only a couple weeks left in quarter 2. So really in quarters 3 and 4, and you could even add in the first couple of quarters of next year. For example, you might want to address legacy giving at your next advisory board meeting, or provide a recap of this session and get buy-in from the board to take next steps, maybe even to officially adopt a resolution in support of legacy giving. For those of you that still have match monies available to you, you might have some very specific steps that you want to accomplish before December 31st. I really recommend that what you put in your timeline and your action steps are basic and measurable and realistic steps. If your organization still needs to get those 2 foundational pieces in place, put those in for your plan for the next few months. If your organization is further along, your action plan for the next few quarters might include have 5 conversations with potential legacy donors, and assignments to specific committee members or board members who will have those conversations. I think we didn't do a great job in this particular document making sure that it's not just what's going to get done here, but by whom, so that somebody is responsible. So the legacy giving plan and timeline for your community will, of course, be uniquely yours. If you will commit to legacy giving and include at least a few of these best practices that we've talked about today in your work plan, I'm really confident that you will be successful in securing legacy gifts going forward and growing your affiliates endowment. And that wraps up the legacy giving planning section of tonight. And I'm going to turn it over to Marco, who's going to introduce our next section.
Well, thanks, Elizabeth. So just as a quick introduction, we know that many of you who were in the last session with us, you expressed an interest in knowing and learning more about different giving vehicles, the ways that people can make a legacy gift. And while you don't need to be experts, we do have an expert in our affiliate network, a local renowned estate planning attorney, Jo Copley. She rolled her eyes, but Jo has been involved since the inception of Golden Heart Community Foundation, and she serves as the chair of the board. And she's going to share with everyone at a high level what's important to know when you're talking with potential legacy donors. So Jo, please take it away.
Okay, that sounds great. And you can go ahead and move already to the next slide, Marco. I think it's really important to keep in context why people give, not just because of the good feeling, but there's benefits, tax and income tax benefits to giving. And, you know, to be blunt, often that is the reason why people say, you know what, that is the reason I'm going to give. I love my community, but wow, I get to save income taxes, or I get to save estate taxes, or the like. So I wanted to kind of put that in context for you, because I think that's really the driver for a lot of people. And there's two taxes that come into play. One is income tax and one is estate tax. And, you know, we'll talk about some exemptions and stuff, but the list that's on your screen is what is subject to the estate tax. Well, everything that basically you own is subject to the estate tax. And I mean, you look down, and within 9 months of the date of somebody dies, if they hit the magic number, and we'll talk in a minute what the magic number is, you have to file a 706 estate tax return and pay estate taxes that begin at a high marginal rate. Usually it's in the 40% range. You got to pay within 9 months of the date of death, and that's what your estate, and people say, well, I'll be dead, I won't care, and that's true, but your family will have to pay out of your estate, and that can be a huge chunk. When I first started practicing law, the highest estate tax amount was 55%. So I always would tell my clients that the estate tax makes income tax look like kid stuff. It's a horrible tax that sometimes has to be paid. So if you go to the next slide, Marco, there is an exemption, and it's been going up. In all the years I've been a lawyer, and that's now 33, it keeps going up. And for people dying in 2020, the exemption's $11.58 million. And so for a married couple, double, that's 23.16. I mean, it's huge. Or as the president said, huge, but it's going to go away. And we don't know what's going to happen. In 2025, the current estate tax exemption, the law that created this increase, sunsets, meaning it goes away. And so, and a lot's happened since we got this huge increasing benefit. Not to mention what's happened this year with, we've seen the PPP plan, the CARES Act. I mean, there are $1 trillion basic bailouts out there. Got to be paid for somehow. And the estate tax is always a popular political whipping boy because, you know, everybody, only the rich pay estate tax. And I've learned in my career, a lot of people are more rich than they think because this tax is often lying in the woods. So currently, the estate tax exemption goes back to $5 million per person, $10 million per couple. But think about that list that was just on the screen. You don't need to go back there. It's everything. It's your retirement accounts. It's your home. It's your business. It's the family farm. It's things you inherit. It doesn't take as long as people think to get to that exemption. Now, in my career, I've never seen the exemption amount go down, but that doesn't mean it can't, and that doesn't mean it won't. Who knows who's going to be elected in November? Who knows what Congress is going to look like? My crystal ball hasn't functioned in years, and I've given up on all that. But it can go back down. When I first started practicing law, the exemption was $600,000. It was the heyday of estate planning, frankly. Everybody had an estate tax problem. It was beautiful. Estate planning lawyers, we were busy like crazy. But that has changed over time. But we just don't know what it's going to be. The last time that it was crazy estate planning, 2012, it was going to go back to $1 million. The last quarter of 2012, estate planners around the country were like planning like wildfire because we didn't know what was going to happen January 1st, and this really nice big exemption was going to go away. I had clients, it was insane around here. You would have thought we were closing $1 million deals, but we kind of were because we could save lots and lots of money. So if you think about yourself and you think about people in your community, sometimes it's not as hard to get to the estate tax exemption as you might think. So let's go to the next slide. So as an estate planning lawyer, I'm always thinking about if I have an estate tax problem, what can I do to reduce the size of somebody's estate? And so if you click a little bit and those 3 bullets will come up. One is gifts. And probably everybody's heard you can give up to $15,000 per year to everybody in your community without having to file an estate tax return or pay gift tax, and that's a beautiful thing. You can make life insurance gifts. That's a great thing. But here's the one we're all interested in, charitable giving. If you have somebody who has an estate tax problem, and this has obviously happened in my career, I often say, well, you know, all your life you've been giving to X church or United Way or whatever, how do you feel about making a charitable gift at death? And suddenly that's something that they go, and you mean I can save estate taxes or I can save taxes? And I say, yes. And that suddenly gets them pretty excited. So let's go to the next slide. So a charitable gift, what I tell my clients is plan a gift you can afford that won't leave your family in a way that you're not happy about. You can do something good that maybe you've believed in all your life. It's an opportunity for your family to share that, you know, we've always given to X charity, or we've always believed in this church or this group or that. You get an estate tax deduction. Sometimes you get an income tax deduction, it depends. And you can take advantage of giving assets that may in and of themselves have their own tax problem. And you can use a charity's, and I should have put a possessive there, tax exempt status to save some money. And we'll talk about that in a minute. So let's go to the next slide, Marco. So we've already talked a little bit. Elizabeth talked last time, she talked today, and they gave a sample. You might know the lawyer who was involved in that little handout that Marco shared. You can leave. A very common thing for people in their wills is to just leave a charitable bequest. You know, I leave X dollars to, you know, the Golden Heart Community Foundation. I think big too. I like 10 million. It's a great number. So, you know, you could have somebody say, I want to leave, or I leave a charitable bequest of a certain amount of money to a foundation. I personally, with my clients, like to use a percentage. You can use a stated dollar amount, but I always say, well, you don't know what size estate it's going to be. So you don't really know at the end what you're going to die with. Who knows? Because we don't know how end of life medical expenses or the like are going to turn out. So I often recommend a percentage of the estate. You leave so much percentage to X charity or charities so that you can do that. Another really great, and probably this is on the wrong slide, but I wanted to make sure I mentioned it, is making a gift of appreciated stock or an appreciated asset. That's another really beautiful thing to do, even during life, frankly. If you have stock, if you were so lucky to have bought, you know, Microsoft or Apple many, many years ago, and if you paid, you know, $100 for that stock and it's now worth, I don't know, what is it, 2,000, 3,000 a share. If you want to make a gift to a charity, you can gift that stock to ACF, Golden Heart Community Foundation, Chilkat, whomever. And then that charity can sell it, and that gain that is built in on that stock doesn't get paid because the charity, you use their tax exempt status. It's a beautiful thing. So as far as that kind of giving, you can do that, you know, through a transfer on death, bequest as well. But giving an appreciated asset is a great thing. Now, Real estate has its own, that can be an appreciated asset too. You could give property, but of course property has its own. The charity wants to make sure you're not giving your oil dump to ACF, right? We want to make sure that that asset's a good asset, but appreciated stock is always clean. There's no environmental problems. It's a beautiful thing. So that's an easy one to get. So if you have somebody who says, you know, gosh, you know, I'd really like to give you all money. And it's like, well, you know, the ways to think about it is appreciated stock and appreciated asset. Let's go to the next slide, because I know we're running out of time. Life insurance is a really easy thing for people to give. You can give it, you can give ownership of the policy. I always like to encourage my clients, think about something not as all or nothing. How about a percentage? Again, maybe you leave 80% to your children or 80% to your spouse and the balance to a charity. You don't have to change your will. To change your beneficiary designation, you contact your Allstate agent, State Farm, Northwest, you know, whoever your life insurance company is, and it's a beneficiary designation change and it goes. So, and you often, at death, life insurance comes in. A lot of people don't understand that. They think, well, doesn't it pass outside of probate? And that's true, but it's still subject to estate tax, potentially, if it's over that exemption amount. So you can, you know, get a deduction for that part of the life insurance proceeds going to a third party, or to the charity, I should say. Next slide, please. Other charitable giving vehicles, and now we're getting into some really, and keep clicking through Maricopa so they show up. These are like high level, right? This is charitable gift annuities, charitable remainder trust, charitable lead trust. These are something you just need to know in general what they are. But I mean, these are things that not just every lawyer does. I mean, estate planning lawyers do. Charities do, big level charities who, you know, provide these documents. You just need to have a general speaking knowledge. Charitable gift annuity is just what it says. It's a contract where a charity will pay a fixed amount of money to an annuitant. The remainder trust it's irrevocable. They pay during the beneficiary's lifetime, the income off whatever that trust makes, and then the balance of the asset goes to the charity. The lead trust is just the flip of that. The charity gets the income through life for a fixed term, and then at the end, the trust assets go back to family or the grantor, whoever they've said. So you may have somebody saying, well, what about, can I use a trust? And the answer is yes, but that's the time to say you need to get to somebody at ACF, Elizabeth, or, you know, in the planned giving team to give you a lot more information, because that is high level planning. Go to the next slide, please. Assets with income tax issues. A lot of people think about IRAs and 401ks and think they are tax exempt, and that's false. They are tax deferred, and we're now talking income tax. They can also be subject to estate tax, which makes them a double whammy. But there are definitely income tax associated, because you have to start paying income tax on IRAs or 401ks when you get to your required minimum distribution age, which is 59 and a half. Well, that's when you could start taking. 72 is when you must start taking. It used to be 71 and a half. So now they've made it 72. So when you get to 72, you must start taking what's called your required minimum distributions from these assets, and they are subject to income tax and paying. But there are some things you can do. So let's go to the next slide on this. This is popular planning. You want to do it with traditional IRAs, not Roths. Usually Roths you've already paid the income tax on. Traditional IRAs, you haven't. So let's go to the next slide. That's just a brief slide, and you're going to have access to all these. And again, Roths, you don't want to give to charities because tax has already been paid. Traditionals, they're good to give. Let's go to the next one. I'm ahead of myself in what I'm talking. Here we are. Qualified charitable distributions. They're beautiful things. So if you're at age 72, or you have one of the people in your community who is, and they have to start taking their required minimum distributions. We've seen this at Golden Heart Community actually quite a bit. Required minimum distributions, as I said, are subject to income tax. You can, if the donor gives their required minimum distribution directly to a 501c3, and it has to be direct. We had one recently, the financial institution here in Fairbanks didn't get it, and they paid it directly to our potential donor. not good. So yeah, that person's probably going to have some unhappiness there, but not with us, fortunately. But in any event, they make their gift directly payable to the charity. They do it by December 31st. And the great news is, so let's say you had a required minimum distribution of $5,000 or whatever, that doesn't count in your income. So obviously your taxable income, instead of being at, 50,000, is now 45. It's a beautiful thing. You can give, a donor can give up to 100,000. If they're married, they can give up to 200,000 per year through an RMD. So it's a beautiful thing through a qualified charitable distribution. So how do you get somebody started in your community? Just don't get them bogged down. I think sometimes people get real overwhelmed. And it's like anything, you just got to take a couple little steps. One thing is just start collecting, encourage them to start collecting information, encourage them to see a financial planner, an accountant, a lawyer, whoever they feel trusted, their trusted advisor is. And the Alaska Bar Association has referrals, ACF has referrals. I mean, there's all kinds of folks. I'm always happy to work with people wherever. So whatever works for people in their community, find somebody that they trust, that they can be directed to. Find out what your beneficiary designations say. That's huge. A lot of times people think the will trumps everything. Actually, those beneficiary designations are really important. Make an appointment to talk to a professional and to get started. Don't delay. In my career, I have gone to the ICU at Fairbanks Memorial Hospital more times than I care to think about, and it is just the last place everybody wants me to be, including me, but sometimes that's what you have to do. So encouraging people to get started, to do something, it's always better to do something when everybody's healthy and happy and thinking than when things are not looking good, and then suddenly people realize something needs to be done. I mentioned at one of the previous affiliate meetings our website through CSG. We have free healthcare directives and powers of attorney on our website, which is there. I really encourage you to do it, use it. It's something that we offer for free to members of our community and to statewide. And that's just an important thing for you to have. So in about 20 minutes, I've talked about what we could talk about for half a day in a seminar among lawyers. So I'm happy to answer any questions and appreciate the opportunity to participate.
This is Elizabeth. Much further into the Q&A section, and I'll just be brief. Thank you very much, Joe, for that great overview, and wanted to make sure people understood that nobody here but Joe needs to be an expert in these things. We heard loud and clear from the people in the first session that they wanted some information, and you do need to know some information, because people, what are you talking about? How am I going to make a legacy gift? Well, now you know. I mean, the most important thing to know about are wills and bequests and IRA beneficiary designations and life insurance. Those really are the three most popular and easiest. But even those things, you can refer people back to their professional advisor about. You do not need to be experts, and you can always call us at ACF, and we will give you the information we know, and probably also say, okay, now it's time to talk to a professional advisor. So with that, I will turn it over to Lindsay, who's going to facilitate some Q&A. Thank you very much.
Sure, that was great. Thank you for that, Joe and Elizabeth, for clearing that up. We did have a good discussion questions in the chat around anonymous legacy gifts. And this was a question Kim shared from Seward. Will affiliates be notified of declarations? Will we know who the donor is and the amount of money, even if they wish to remain anonymous? And this is something that Robin added on to, that it's important in terms of stewarding those donors over their lifetimes, and just wanted to get a sense of what ACF's process is when it comes to anonymous legacy gifts, if they, for example, come to ACF first instead of through the affiliate themselves.
So I'll take a stab at that first and say that we certainly work with donors from affiliate communities and encourage them to say that we can provide information to the affiliate. However, they do have the option of remaining totally anonymous to the affiliate community and advisory board. It doesn't happen often, but that does exist. We ask them, we don't, you know, if they fill out the form, say anonymous, we go back to them and ask them if we can share the information with at least the advisory board. But they do have the option of remaining totally anonymous, and it does happen.
And I'll add to that, Elizabeth, that's not just for the affiliates. When a donor makes a donation to ACF and they wish to be completely anonymous, they can request that it stays completely confidential to everybody at ACF, with the exception of whoever they're making the gift to and myself. So there are times when our board, they request that our board doesn't know about it. And that's out of respect for the donor's intent and privacy, and we try to be respectful of that. But to Elizabeth's point, we try to explain all the good reasons why it is valuable to share that information, because A, it encourages others to potentially give, B, it allows you to be good stewards at the affiliate level, and C, it's just a positive win for the community, even if there's no name attached. So we do our best, but there are some times that we just have to be mindful of the donor's wishes.
Great, thank you, Nina. And it looks like Robin is raising her hand, and since this is building on her questions, I wanted to see, Robin, if you wanted to add more to this or if you had another question to add.
I had two things. One on actually the last 2 points. The first one was thank you for that explanation, and it's great to hear that you encourage folks who come to you with legacy gifts to have their name be known by the affiliate board. I just wanted to suggest another option that, you know, I think it would also be possible to let just the program manager or just the board chair know. So at least somebody in the community involved with the affiliate could know and have a relationship with that donor, because relationships are really important. And, you know, I put in the chat, we have an example of wealthy local donors who recently took several local nonprofits out of their estate plans because those organizations didn't do a great job of communication. So we appreciate it. And the other thing was just, I see a number of people asking for the great information that Joe shared. And it's great to have that stuff in the background, but what I have said to our board members and to other organizations that we work with who are volunteers is that as a volunteer who is not an expert, your job is really to talk about values and the benefits of making an estate gift to the organization and to the community. And you never ever need, if you're not an expert, to be able to define a charitable remainder trust. Your job is just to convince people that giving is a good idea. And if they have questions, you know, send them to ACF, send them to Joe, send them to an attorney. You don't need to know the details. Just focus on values.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Thank you, Robin. And I just made a note in the chat that we do have some of these fact sheets on our website where we do lightly talk about these topics. And it looks like Anne Myron has a question. She has her hand raised. Do you want to go ahead and share?
Can I just say one thing before we go off the confidentiality of donors thing is, I think it's really valuable for Chris Noros to hear the discussion, because I think one of the sections in the our policies going forward is to be more clear about what happens when it's a confidential donation, above and beyond and including affiliate donations. But I think Chris will help us navigate how we're just really clear about the communications that go along with that, both to the donor and then on to potential programs or affiliates that are affected. So Chris, I hope that that was valuable for you in your research.
Great, she's given thumbs up. Thank you. Anne, would you like to go ahead?
Yeah, I had a question for Nina. I understand that a donor could say, you know, let you guys know and not want us to know that they've made a gift. Could they or not want us to know who made the gift, but could they also say they didn't even want us to know that a gift was made? So in other words, like for instance, our most recent gift, we knew that someone had made the gift and the amount, but we didn't know who. Could there be also situations where a gift has been made and we don't even know that it exists at all?
There can be those situations. I mean, it has to show up on our books somewhere that says anonymous gift, but it doesn't have to show to what and to how. But yes, it's very, very rare. And I'm just thinking of the situation you're thinking about. They were comfortable with saying that there was a gift that was made. The challenges in some of the smaller communities that the subset of people who are capable of making those kind of gifts become sort of self-selecting, and then people start doing their own deductive reasoning, and we get into situations that we sort of had to navigate through in the case with Chilkat Valley. So, you know, I think the suggestion of if and when people do have any concerns about confidentiality and being anonymous, that we just kind of lay out their options. But one of the options, to answer your question directly, one of the options is that they do not tell anybody. I mean, the other option is that they're not comfortable with that, then they actually may not tell us, and then none of us know, and that's not helpful at all. It's better that somebody at ACF is tracking that and has some record to keep track of. And I think what isn't being said here is that if just because the donor may not want the individual community to know, ACF then has a little bit of stewardship responsibility to make sure they're reaching out on a regular basis and acknowledge them as a legacy donor. And that just puts the onus back on us, but we take that very seriously. The other thing that I would just say on legacy gifts is, and I haven't worked this out in my mind at all, but and I don't know that affiliates communities are necessarily big enough, but maybe they are. One of the things that's really, really been very welcomed by legacy donors is to get together with other legacy donors in the community. When we had a get together for legacy donors to ACF more broadly, I was amazed at who showed up. I mean, the people that I never thought would show up, it happened to have been my house, surprised me, and they wanted to actually be around others who sort of thought about leaving a monumental gift like this, and they truly enjoyed the time. And I don't know, I guess I'd maybe put it to the strategy work group to think about how we might be able to include legacy donors from your communities into that, especially if we're going to a more virtual legacy gathering, and just give people an opportunity. They don't have to attend if they want to be with other like-minded other donors that are giving something significant to the community foundation concept. So.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any other questions or any other hands raised, and we are just after 6:30, so we're really good on time. I want to thank everybody for not only logging in and participating, but really chewing on this information, bringing it back to your communities, and moving out to cultivate legacy relationships with people who really do want to make a long-term difference in their communities, and really appreciate everybody's time and energy. And we've said it many times, we will send out the recording, we will send out the presentation, we will send out the example resources, and we will also make sure to share different fact sheets and information that we have at ACF so that you have all of the information that you need. And then Mariko and I are ready, able, and willing to sit down and work through some of this with you all so that you can move forward in your communities. So with that, I'm going to say thank you, everyone who presented tonight, and everyone for participating. Virtual hand claps, and hopefully we'll connect all soon.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks,
Great job. Thank you.
Chris Norris, can I get you to stay on another topic?
You bet.
We'll end the recording for you.